The jar sat on the highest shelf in Emma's closet, where her father wouldn't accidentally find it. It was an old pickle jar, the label long since peeled away, and inside it held everything that mattered to a 9-year-old girl with a dream: $17.34. Emma counted the money every night before bed, her small fingers sorting through the quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies with the reverence of a jeweler examining diamonds. $17.34. Not enough yet, but closer than yesterday. She had been saving for 4 months now, ever since that morning in late September when she'd noticed the tear in her father's work jacket. It wasn't a small tear, it ran along the right shoulder seam, exposing the white padding underneath like a wound. Her father, Marcus, had tried to hide it by keeping that arm close to his body, but Emma had seen it when he reached up to ruffle her hair before leaving for his shift at the warehouse. "Dad, your jacket," she'd said, pointing. Marcus had glanced down at his shoulder and shrugged, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his tired eyes. "Oh, that old thing? It's fine, sweetheart. Still keeps me warm." But Emma had noticed other things too. The way the cuffs were frayed, threads hanging loose like tiny fingers. The zipper that stuck halfway up, forcing her father to yank it hard every morning. The faded blue color that had turned almost gray in places, worn thin by years of early mornings and late nights. That afternoon, while her father was at work and she was at her neighbor Mrs. Chen's apartment, her usual after-school arrangement, Emma had asked if they could walk to the store. Mrs. Chen, a kind woman in her 70s who smelled like jasmine tea and moved slowly due to arthritis, had agreed. At Miller's department store, Emma had found it. The jacket hung on a rack near the back, and it seemed to glow under the fluorescent lights. It was a deep, rich blue, the color of the sky just after sunset, with a sturdy zipper, reinforced shoulders, and a thick collar lined with soft fleece. Emma had reached up to touch it, and the fabric felt strong and new, nothing like the thin, worn material of her father's current jacket. She had checked the price tag, her heart sinking. $49.99. It might as well have been $1 million. Mrs. Chen had found her standing there, staring at the jacket with such intensity that the old woman had gently asked, "What are you looking at, little one?" "That jacket," Emma had whispered. "It's perfect for my dad. His is all torn up, but he won't buy a new one." Mrs. Chen had studied the jacket, then looked down at Emma with understanding in her dark eyes. "Your father works very hard, doesn't he?" Emma had nodded, tears threatening to spill. "He works so much. And he's always cold in the morning. I hear him coughing when he gets ready for work." Mrs. Chen had squeezed Emma's shoulder. "Then perhaps," she'd said softly, "you should save up and buy it for him. A gift from the heart is worth more than gold." And so the saving had begun. Emma became a girl on a mission. She collected the quarters her father left in his pockets on laundry day, the ones he told her she could keep. She saved every penny of her lunch money, packing extra snacks from home, and pretending she wasn't hungry when her stomach growled in class. When her teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, needed someone to help organize the classroom library, Emma had volunteered, earning $5 for her effort. She'd found a dollar bill on the sidewalk, picked up cans for the recycling center, and carefully saved the tooth fairy money from when she'd lost her bottom molar. $17.34. She needed $32.65 more. Winter arrived early that year, dragging cold winds and frost through the streets of their small town. Emma watched her father leave for work in the pre-dawn darkness, his torn jacket pulled tight around him, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. The tear in the shoulder had grown larger, and now there was a rip along the bottom hem too. "Dad, you're going to freeze," Emma had said one morning, worry creasing her small forehead. Marcus had kissed the top of her head, his lips cold. "I'm tougher than I look, Em. Don't you worry about me." But she did worry. She worried constantly. Marcus worked at Patterson Warehouse, a massive distribution center on the edge of town. He'd worked there for 6 years, ever since Emma's mother, Sarah, had passed away from cancer. The medical bills had been crushing, and Marcus had taken the warehouse job because it paid better than his previous work as a store manager. The hours were long, sometimes 12-hour shifts, and the work was physically demanding, but it kept a roof over their heads and food on the table. Emma knew they didn't have extra money. She knew this because she'd seen her father sitting at the kitchen table late at night, staring at bills with his head in his hands. She knew because sometimes they ate spaghetti for dinner 3 nights in a row. She knew because when she'd asked for new sneakers last month, her father had looked at her worn-out shoes with such sadness before saying, "Let's make these last a little longer, sweetheart. We can stuff tissue in the toes." So Emma saved harder. She started waking up early to help Mrs. Chin with small chores, taking out the trash, watering plants, and the old woman would slip her $1 here and there, always with a conspiratorial wink. When her classmate Tommy offered her $3 to help him with his math homework, Emma had tutored him for 2 weeks. She'd even sold her favorite doll at the school's toy swap, the one with the pink dress that her mother had given her, and though her heart had broken when she handed it over, the $5 she received brought her closer to her goal. $29.12. Then $31.67. By mid-December, Emma had saved $42.18. She was so close she could taste it. Just $7 more and 81 cents. The jacket was still at Miller's department store. She'd checked every week with Mrs. Chin, terrified someone else would buy it. But it remained, hanging on the same rack, waiting. Emma decided she would give her father the jacket on Christmas morning. It was perfect timing. She imagined the look on his face when he opened it, the way his eyes would light up, the way he'd pull her into one of his bear hugs that made her feel safe and loved and like everything would be okay. On December 18th, exactly 1 week before Christmas, Emma finally reached her goal. She'd helped Mr. Kowalski from apartment 3B carry his groceries up 3 flights of stairs, and he'd given her $2. She'd found 73 cents in the couch cushions when her father wasn't looking. And Mrs. Chin, bless her generous heart, had given Emma $5 for being such good company. $50.18. Emma could barely contain her excitement. That afternoon, she begged Mrs. Chin to take her to the store, practically bouncing with anticipation. "Patience, little one," Mrs. Chin had said with a gentle laugh, but she'd called for a taxi. Her arthritis was particularly bad that day, and they'd made the journey to Miller's. Emma's heart pounded as they walked through the automatic doors. Christmas music played overhead, and the store was decorated with garlands and twinkling lights. She headed straight for the back, her hand clutching the envelope of money she'd carefully counted and recounted. The rack was there, but the jacket was gone. Emma stopped dead, staring at the empty hanger where the blue jacket should have been. Her breath caught in her throat, and her vision blurred with tears. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Mrs. Chin came up beside her, placing a gentle hand on Emma's shoulder. "Perhaps they have more in the back? Let's ask." But the sales clerk, a tired-looking woman with a name tag that read Brenda, shook her head. "I'm sorry, sweetie. That was the last one in that style. We sold it this morning." Emma felt like the floor had dropped out from beneath her. For months of saving. For months of going hungry at lunch, of waking up early, of selling her mother's doll. All of it for nothing. She couldn't stop the tears then. They streamed down her face as she stood in the middle of Miller's department store, her heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. Mrs. Chin knelt down, a painful effort for her, and pulled Emma into a hug. Dear one. It's all right. We'll find another jacket." But Emma shook her head against Mrs. Chen's shoulder. "It won't be the same. That was the perfect one. It was strong and warm and the right color, and I saved so hard." "I know you did," Mrs. Chin said softly. "I know." They looked at other jackets, but none of them felt right. Some were too expensive, others looked cheap and flimsy, and none of them were the deep, beautiful blue of the one Emma had been dreaming about for months. Eventually, defeated and heartbroken, Emma and Mrs. Chin left the store. On the taxi ride home, Emma stared out the window, clutching her envelope of money. The Christmas lights that decorated the houses they passed seemed to mock her, all bright and cheerful when she felt so utterly miserable. "What am I going to give him now?" she asked quietly. Mrs. Chin was silent for a moment, then said, "Emma, dear, your father loves you more than anything in this world. Whatever you give him, it will be perfect because it comes from you." But Emma wasn't consoled. She'd had it all planned out, the perfect gift for her perfect father, the man who worked himself to exhaustion to take care of her, who never complained, who always made sure she had what she needed even when he went without. The next few days passed in a blur of sadness. Emma returned to Miller's twice more, hoping against hope that maybe they'd gotten another shipment, but the rack remained empty. She checked other stores too, but none of them had the same jacket, and the ones that were similar were too expensive or the wrong size. December 23rd arrived, cold and gray. Emma sat in her room, staring at the envelope of money and feeling like a failure. Christmas was in 2 days, and she had nothing to give her father. That evening, Marcus came home from work earlier than usual. Emma heard him in the kitchen, moving around, and then his voice calling her. "Em, can you come here for a second?" Emma dragged herself out of her room, still wearing her pajamas even though it was almost dinner time. Her father stood in the kitchen, still wearing his torn jacket, and the expression on his face made Emma's stomach drop. He looked devastated. "Sweetheart," Marcus said, his voice rough. Come sit down." Emma sat at the kitchen table, her heart beginning to pound. Her father pulled out the chair across from her and sat down heavily, like all the weight in the world was pressing on his shoulders. "I need to tell you something," he said, not meeting her eyes. "And I need you to understand that everything is going to be okay. I promise you, everything will be okay." "Dad?" Emma's voice was small. "What's wrong?" Marcus took a deep breath, and when he looked up, Emma saw that his eyes were red-rimmed. "I lost my job today, Em. They had to lay off a bunch of people, and I was one of them. It wasn't anything I did wrong. The company's having money troubles. They said maybe they could hire me back in a few months, but for now, I don't have work." The words hit Emma like a physical blow. Her father, her strong, hard-working father who never missed a day, who left before dawn and came home after dark, didn't have a job anymore. But Dad," Emma stammered, "what are we going to do? How will we pay for things?" Hey. Marcus reached across the table and took both of her hands in his. His hands were rough and calloused from years of warehouse work, but they were warm and steady. Didn't I just say everything will be okay? I've got some money saved up, and I'm going to start looking for another job right away. We're going to be fine. We've been through hard times before, you and me, and we always make it through. Right? Emma nodded, though tears were already streaming down her face. Right. That's my girl. Marcus squeezed her hands. "Now, I know Christmas is in 2 days, and I need you to understand that it might not be like other years. I've got presents for you, don't worry about that, but they might be smaller than usual. Is that okay?" "I don't care about presents," Emma said, and she meant it. All she cared about was her father, this man who had given up everything to raise her alone after her mother died, who never asked for anything for himself. That night, after Marcus had gone to bed, exhausted from the emotional toll of the day, Emma sat in her room with the envelope of money. $50.18. It was supposed to buy a jacket to keep her father warm while he worked. But now he didn't have work to go to. Now he needed it for other things. Bills. Food. The rent. Emma knew what she had to do. It broke her heart all over again, but she knew. The next morning, Christmas Eve, Emma emerged from her room early. Her father was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a newspaper, circling job listings with a pen. He looked up when she came in and smiled, though it didn't erase the worry lines around his eyes. "Morning, sweetheart." "Morning, Dad." Emma walked over to him and held out the envelope. "This is for you." Marcus looked confused. "What's this?" "It's money. $50.18. I've been saving it, but I want you to have it. For bills and stuff. Since you lost your job." Her father's face went through a series of emotions, confusion, realization, and then something that looked like his heart was breaking. "Emma, no. I can't take your money. That's yours." "I want you to have it," Emma insisted, pushing the envelope toward him. "Please, Dad. I want to help." Marcus stared at the envelope, then at his daughter, and Emma watched as tears filled his eyes. Her father, who never cried, who always stayed strong no matter what, was crying. "Oh, sweetheart," he said, his voice cracking. He stood up and pulled Emma into a fierce hug, holding her tight against his chest. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You know that? The very best thing." Emma hugged him back, her face pressed against his worn jacket. "So you'll take it?" Marcus pulled back and knelt down so they were eye to eye. "Emma, I appreciate this more than you could ever know. But this is your money. You saved it for something, didn't you? What were you saving for?" Emma hesitated. Then the whole story came tumbling out. The jacket at Miller's. The 4 months of saving. The plan to give it to him for Christmas. How someone else had bought it, and how she'd been heartbroken. But now it didn't matter anyway because he didn't have a job to go to, and the money should help with bills instead. By the time she finished, her father was openly crying, tears streaming down his face. "You did all that?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "For me," Emma nodded. "I wanted you to have a good jacket. Your old one is all torn up, and you're always cold, and I just wanted you to be warm and—" She couldn't finish because her father pulled her into another hug, this one even tighter than the first. She felt his shoulders shaking, felt the tears from his face dampening her hair. "I love you so much," Marcus said, his voice muffled against her. "I love you so much, Emma. You are my whole world. Do you understand that? My whole world." They stood there for a long time, father and daughter, holding each other in their small kitchen while winter light filtered through the windows. Finally, Marcus pulled back and wiped his eyes. "Okay," he said, clearing his throat. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm not taking all of this money, but I'll tell you what, how about we use $20 of it for groceries? We'll make a really nice Christmas dinner, you and me. And the rest you keep. Maybe one day you'll find another jacket, or maybe you'll save up for something else. But that money is yours, Em. You earned it." "But Dad—" "No buts," Marcus said firmly, though his eyes were still soft. "This is not a negotiation, young lady. $20 for Christmas dinner, and you keep the rest. Deal?" Emma wanted to argue, but she could see that this mattered to her father, that he needed to feel like he could still provide, still be the parent. "Deal," she agreed quietly. "Good." Marcus stood up and ruffled her hair, the gesture so familiar and loving that Emma felt her own tears threatening again. "Now, how about we make some breakfast? I'm thinking pancakes." Christmas morning arrived cold and clear. Emma woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of her father moving around in the kitchen. She got dressed and went out to find that Marcus had made a small breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast, and the tiny Christmas tree they'd put up in the corner of their living room, a 3-foot artificial tree from the dollar store, glowed with its single strand of lights. "Merry Christmas," Marcus said, pulling her into a side hug. "Merry Christmas, Dad." Under the tree, there were 3 presents. 2 were wrapped in newspaper comics. Marcus had gotten creative with the wrapping, and they were for Emma. The third, a small flat package, was from Emma to her father. She'd used some of her remaining money to buy him a nice pair of warm socks, the thick wool kind, and she'd wrapped them in paper she'd colored herself with markers. They opened presents slowly, savoring each one. Emma received a book she'd been wanting, used, but in good condition, and a beautiful hand-drawn picture of her and her mother that her father must have spent hours on. She loved both presents fiercely and hugged her father tight. Then Marcus opened his present from Emma. He pulled out the warm socks and smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "These are perfect, sweetheart. My feet are going to be so cozy. Thank you." You're welcome, Emma said, though she couldn't help thinking about the blue jacket, the perfect gift that had gotten away. After presents, they made Christmas dinner together. A small ham that Marcus had gotten on sale, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a simple apple pie. They ate at their little kitchen table, and even though it wasn't fancy, even though money was tight and the future was uncertain, it felt warm and full of love. That evening, as darkness fell, and they were settling in to watch a Christmas movie, there was a knock at the door. Marcus looked surprised. Who could that be? He opened the door to find Miss Winston standing there, bundled in her winter coat, a large shopping bag in her hands. Behind her stood Mr. Kowalski and several other neighbors from their apartment building. "Merry Christmas, Marcus," Mrs. Chin said with a warm smile. May we come in? Of course, Marcus said, confused but welcoming. Please come in. The neighbors filed into the small apartment, and Emma watched from the couch, equally confused. Mrs. Chin set the shopping bag down and turned to Marcus with a serious expression. "We heard about your job," she said gently. "News travels fast in this building. And we wanted you to know that you're not alone. We're a community here, and we take care of our own." Mr. Kowalski stepped forward. "I know a foreman at the construction company I used to work for. He's looking for good workers. I already put in a word for you, and he wants you to come by after the holidays." Another neighbor, Mr. Patterson, spoke up. "And I manage a grocery store. If the construction thing doesn't work out, I've got a position open. Not as much as the warehouse, but it's steady." Marcus looked overwhelmed, his eyes getting wet again. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, Mrs. Chin said. Just accept help when it's offered. She turned to Emma and winked. Your daughter has taught us all something about generosity this year. She's been helping me and others around the building, always with such a good heart. She learned that from you, Marcus. You've raised a wonderful child." Marcus looked at Emma, his face full of pride and love and gratitude, and Emma felt her heart swell. Then Mrs. Chin reached into the shopping bag and pulled out a box, a large flat box from Miller's department store. "And this," she said, handing it to Emma, "is for you. From all of us." Emma's hands shook as she took the box. She looked at Mrs. Chin, then at the other neighbors, then at her father. What is it? Open it and see," Mrs. Chin encouraged. Emma carefully lifted the lid off the box, pulled back the tissue paper, and gasped. It was the jacket. The blue jacket from Miller's, the one she'd been saving for, the one that had been sold. How Emma couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't even form the words. Mrs. Chin smiled. "I bought it that morning in December. I saw how much you wanted it for your father, and I knew you were close to having enough money, but I was worried someone else would buy it first. So I bought it and kept it safe, waiting for the right moment. When I heard about Marcus losing his job, I talked to the neighbors, and we all agreed. We wanted you both to have something special this Christmas." Emma started crying, and she couldn't stop. She pulled the jacket out of the box. It was even more beautiful than she remembered. That deep blue color, the sturdy fabric, the soft fleece lining. This is from you," Mrs. Chin said softly, looking at Marcus. "From your daughter. She saved for 4 months to buy you this. She skipped lunches and did chores and sold her favorite doll. All because she loves you and wanted you to be warm." Marcus looked at Emma, then at the jacket, then back at Emma. His face crumpled, and he dropped to his knees, pulling his daughter into his arms. "Oh, Em," he sobbed. "Oh, my sweet girl." Emma hugged him back, the jacket clutched between them, tears streaming down both their faces. "Try it on, Dad," she whispered. Please try it on." With shaking hands, Marcus stood and removed his old, torn jacket. He slipped his arms into the new one, and it fit perfectly. The blue made his eyes look brighter, and when he zipped it up, he looked warm and protected and cared for. He looked at himself in the reflection of the dark window, then turned to Emma. It's perfect, he said, his voice thick with emotion. It's absolutely perfect. Emma flew into his arms again, and he lifted her up, spinning her around in their tiny living room while their neighbors watched with tears in their own eyes. "Thank you," Marcus said to everyone, to the whole room. Thank you all so much. You have no idea what this means." We know, Mrs. Chin said simply, because that's what family does. And we're all family here. The neighbors stayed for a while, sharing cookies and stories, filling the small apartment with warmth and laughter. When they finally left, calling out more Merry Christmases and well wishes, Marcus closed the door and leaned against it, still wearing his new blue jacket. He looked at Emma, and Emma looked at him, and they both started laughing and crying at the same time. This is the best Christmas ever, Emma said. Marcus pulled her close, wrapping the jacket, their jacket, the symbol of a daughter's love and a community's kindness around them both. It really is, he agreed. It really is. That night, Emma went to bed with a full heart. Her father had a job interview lined up, a community that cared about them, and a warm jacket to wear. And she had learned something important. That love wasn't measured in dollars and cents, but in sacrifice and effort and the willingness to give everything you had for someone else. As she drifted off to sleep, she heard her father in the living room. She crept to her door and peeked out. He was standing by the window, still wearing the blue jacket, touching the fabric like he couldn't quite believe it was real. He looked warm. He looked loved. And that, Emma thought as she climbed back into bed, was worth more than all the money in the world. 2 months later, Marcus started work at the construction company, and the pay was actually better than the warehouse. The blue jacket became his uniform, the thing he wore every single day, even when it wasn't that cold out. When Emma asked him why, he said, because every time I put it on, I remember that I have a daughter who loves me enough to give up everything for me. And that's the warmest feeling in the world. Emma kept the remaining $30.18 in her pickle jar, but she never spent it. Sometimes she would take it out and count it, remembering the 4 months of saving, the heartbreak of the empty rack, and the miracle of Christmas morning. And years later, when Emma was grown with children of her own, she still had that jacket. Her father had left it to her when he passed, an old man who lived a long, happy life, with a note tucked in the pocket. The note read, "This jacket kept me warm for 20 years, but your love kept me warm for a lifetime. I am so proud of the person you are. Love always, Dad." Emma kept the jacket in her closet, where she could see it every day. And sometimes, when life got hard or she felt lost, she would take it out and hold it close, remembering the 9-year-old girl who learned that the greatest gifts come not from what we can afford to buy, but from what we're willing to sacrifice for the people we love. The blue jacket had been more than just a jacket. It had been a promise, a symbol, and a reminder that love, true, selfless love, was the warmest thing of all.